Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode the mind of one of football's absolute greatest geniuses. Honestly, if you've ever watched a modern football match, you have literally felt his influence on the pitch. We're going to break down the complete tactical history, the overarching philosophy, and the relentless evolution of Pep Guardiola.
Okay, let's dive into this. 14. That is the staggering number of trophies Pep won in just his first 4 years as a senior manager at Barcelona. I mean, it's just a mind-bending statistic, right? It completely reshaped modern football. But how exactly did an unproven academy coach build what is arguably the greatest football team of all time? To figure that out, here's our roadmap. We'll start with the roots of his footballing brain, explore the Barcelona machine, enter the Bayern Munich laboratory, witness the reinvention of Manchester City, and finally look beyond the tactics. Chapter 1: Roots of a Genius: Building a Footballing Brain. So before he was this master tactician, he was an obsessive student. Pep's unprecedented success really stems from a deep, relentless football education, not just raw athleticism. Born into a working-class family in Catalonia, his dad was actually a bricklayer, Pep wasn't exactly the biggest or strongest kid. But, when he joined Barcelona's famous La Masia Academy, that didn't matter at all. La Masia prioritizes the brain over brawn. In fact, as a teenager, Pep worked as a ball boy at Camp Nou, literally sitting on the sidelines absorbing the game's tactical flow, before eventually making it onto the pitch as a central midfielder. What made Pep so incredibly unique as a manager was his ability to synthesize lessons from absolute legends of the game. From Johan Cruyff, he learned the vital importance of spacing and fluid positioning. But he didn't stop there. He picked up defensive protection from Bobby Robson and rigid positional discipline from Louis van Gaal. And get this, before taking his first coaching job, he flew all the way to Argentina for a legendary 11-hour meeting with Marcelo Bielsa, just to discuss the intense mechanics of high pressing. I mean, imagine being a fly on the wall for that obsessive marathon. Pep basically synthesized all of this into his own ultimate philosophy. Chapter 2: The Barcelona Machine: Achieving Perfection. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what happened in 2008. Pep took over the first team and made a massive, highly controversial decision right out of the gate. He shifted focus away from established superstars and built his team around technically gifted academy players. He ruthlessly pursued his own vision. Barcelona had just bought Zlatan Ibrahimovic for $69 million, a traditional stationary target man. But Zlatan clashed with Pep's fluid system and a very young Lionel Messi. So what does Pep do? He sells Zlatan after just 1 year and unleashes Messi in this revolutionary role, the false nine. By having Messi repeatedly drop deep into the midfield, it completely scrambled opposition defenses and gave his wingers these massive pockets of space to exploit. If you've ever wondered why Pep's teams always seem to have an open man, well, it's because of his legendary positional grid. It was built to achieve superiority in 3 very clear buckets. First up, numerical superiority. This means always having an extra passing option, like creating a 4-on-3 advantage in midfield. Next, qualitative superiority, which means isolating a star player, like Messi, one-on-one against a weaker defender. And finally, positional superiority. This utilizes automated, false runs to pull defenders entirely out of their shape. Players were given super strict zones. Honestly, if they roamed selfishly, Pep would sub them out immediately, even if they had just scored a goal. But here's the thing, Barcelona wasn't just an attacking force. They were defensively lethal. Pep instituted the famous 6-second rule. The exact moment they lost the ball, players swarmed the carrier from all angles in this frantic blitz for 6 seconds. If they didn't win it back, they instantly fell back into a compact shape. But once they did recover the ball, the pace shifted entirely. Pep demanded a strict 15-pass rule. They had to methodically complete 15 passes to reorganize their structural grid before even launching an attack, which effectively made them immune to counterattacks. And to break down those really stubborn low blocks from the opposition, Pep utilized a brilliant concept called La Pausa. Next time you watch a City game, keep an eye out for this. Players are taught to literally just stand still with the ball, pausing and delaying the pass. This simple, almost arrogant act of waiting absolutely frustrates defenders. It forces them to nervously step out of their rigid shape to apply pressure. And the absolute second they step out, bam, that instantly opens up brand new passing lanes for his team to exploit. Chapter 3: The Bayern Munich Laboratory: Adapting to the Counter. So, moving to Germany in 2013 to take over Bayern Munich, Pep quickly realized his Spanish blueprint just wouldn't survive the brutal, fast-paced Bundesliga.
In Spain, if you lost the ball, the opponent would patiently circulate it, which gave your fullbacks plenty of time to jog back and recover. But in Germany, it was heavy metal football. Opponents launched immediate, lightning-fast counterattacks directly toward the goal. Pep's traditional wide attacking fullbacks were getting dangerously exposed, and he had to plug those leaks fast. His solution to this was a brilliant tactical innovation called rest defense. Instead of pushing his fullbacks high and wide down the touchline like usual, he tucked them incredibly narrow, right next to his defensive midfielder. This created a highly secure 3+2 defensive shield that stayed totally intact even when Bayern was attacking, essentially stopping counterattacks before they even started. He even introduced something called the anti-10, a wildly unconventional defensive midfielder who played super high up the pitch, whose only job was to shadow and smother the opposition's playmaker. Let's move to and see how this builds. Because German teams pressed like absolute crazy, Pep also had to evolve his passing drills. In Spain, passing was a simple A to B to C flow. But in Germany, to beat that relentless high press, he taught a staggered repeat pass rhythm. So, player A passes to B, and B passes it right back to A. This rapid exchange acts as bait. It actively sucks the aggressively pressing defenders in, right before A fires the ball to a completely wide-open player C. It's just a masterful manipulation of the opponent's own defensive aggression. Chapter 4. Reinventing Manchester City. Conquering England. When Pep finally arrived in the Premier League in 2016, he faced a completely different beast. This was a league historically defined by physical duels, long balls, and just unpredictable chaos. And he quickly learned a really harsh lesson about English football. He was told, you have to do the second ball and the third ball, meaning when a long ball is hoofed up the pitch, you can't just casually win the initial header. You literally have to win the physical scrap for the loose ball afterward. Initially, he really struggled. He inherited the third oldest squad in the league, totally lacking the pace for this style, and his first season actually ended trophyless. But, Pep is nothing if not adaptable. He drastically overhauled his squad and rolled out a devastating new framework. He popularized the advancing inverted fullback, literally pushing a defender straight up into the midfield. This created a massively dominant box midfield overload. Think of it as building an impenetrable fortress right in the center of the pitch. With that midfield completely secure, he pushed his two number 8s way up to form a massive front 5 attacking line. Because most opponents defend with a standard back 4, this front 5 perfectly exploited all 5 attacking channels. It was mathematically impossible to defend against, which led City to an unprecedented 100-point season. Beyond the beautiful passing, though, there is a darker, highly pragmatic art to Pep's English dominance: the tactical foul. Whenever City's structure was caught out of position during a transition, his players were drilled to commit a deliberate minor foul immediately. The punishment was usually pretty minimal, a quick free kick, maybe yellow card, but it completely murdered the opponent's momentum. It was a cynical but frankly brilliant mechanism that kept City virtually impenetrable during messy transitions. And this City squad wasn't a static project, it was a continuous evolution. For instance, from 2020 to 2022, he played a heavily congested midfield system, using a false 9 once again. But as teams eventually figured out how to defend it, he pivoted entirely. He brought in a true physical number 9 in Erling Haaland. To protect against counters with this new direct shape, he stopped using inverted fullbacks and instead pushed a center back, John Stones, into the midfield, utilizing wide center backs behind him. This ultimate evolution is exactly what led City to finally win the historic treble. Chapter 5. Beyond the tactics. The evolution of the man. So the crucial point is, we've talked a lot about positional grids, rules, and structures. But to really understand the true genius of Guardiola today, you have to look at his evolving psychology. For years, his system was an automated machine. Players were heavily restricted, operating almost like programmable robots within his grid. But recently, managers like Carlo Ancelotti have proven that the human element, building genuine relationships, and giving players the freedom to express themselves can actually beat rigid tactics. Pep realized that to sustain his dominance, he had to loosen the reins, valuing individual human expression over sheer robotic control. This leaves Pep currently navigating a massive transition. The modern era of football increasingly demands chaos, flexibility, and individual freedom. As players get older and squads turn over, maintaining that high-intensity rigidity gets harder and harder. So he's learning to be just as much of an empathetic man manager as he is a clinical tactician. He's adapting to the emotional needs of his players, not just their physical output. As his player Rodri put it perfectly, you either reinvent yourself or you die. Pep Guardiola's true genius isn't just a grid or a passing drill. It is his absolute obsessive refusal to stop learning. Thank you so much for joining this explainer. But it leaves us with one final thought to ponder. If the ultimate control freak has finally learned to embrace chaos, what on earth will his next evolution look like?